These are the top stories today. 3 charged in drug bust. U.S. Coast Guard air crews resume search for missing container ship. And Portugal coalition wins election but loses majority. Good afternoon. Welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Monday, 5th October 2015. I'm Jason Davis. In national news, 3 persons, 2 nationals and 1 non-national, have been charged in connection with last week's major drug bust at a beach in Connery. Acting Commissioner of Police Stafford Liebert told ZIZ News that they had been charged, but he did not give specifics. He said the police will make an official statement later today with further details. During the drug bust early Thursday morning, the police seized 124 pounds of marijuana, a gun, and 4 rounds of ammunition. 3 persons were taken into custody at that time. The drugs were said to have a value of $930,000. In other news, Permanent Secretary in the Office of the Prime Minister, Osbert D'Souza, says he's pleased with the level of interest that nationals abroad have been showing in the developments in St. Kitts and Nevis. D'Souza accompanied Prime Minister Harris to New York for several engagements last week. Among them were meetings with nationals living there. One of the big topics of discussion at a town hall meeting in the Bronx on Saturday night was the gratuities payout to former sugar industry workers.
A number of persons who we met at the town hall meeting indicated that they had worked in the industry. Some of them, one man I know, I think his name is Akil, he indicated that he worked there just up to 5 years before the industry closed, and he was not in a position to receive any payment in 2005. So he did apply, and he hopes that this time around he will be able to get something.
D'Souza also accompanied Prime Minister Harris at the United Nations meetings and the 32nd Annual Independence Dinner with nationals in the diaspora. The Ministry of Education and the St. Kitts and Nevis Accreditation Board are in the final stages of hosting the 12th Annual Conference of the Caribbean Area Network for Quality Assurance in Tertiary Education, or CANCATE, later this week. According to a release, the CANCATE Conference will provide a forum addressing quality assurance in tertiary education. The goal is to provide a platform for various stakeholders to share ideas and strategies to improve higher education. Minister of Education, the Honorable Sean Richards, was quoted as saying it's imperative that we ensure that quality assurance remains a priority and a driving force that fuels the development of strategies for the identification and assessment of our current higher education needs. The conference will be held at the St. Kitts Marriott Resort from October 7 to 9. This year's theme is Quality Assurance and Socioeconomic Development in a Global Environment, Regional and International Perspectives.
Hi, how are you?
I will take the strawberry.
The Barry family, they're going to love this meal. Cooked with a lot of love and a lot of natural ingredients. Do you want me to be your chef?
On the regional scene, U.S. Coast Guard air crews resumed the search on Sunday for a missing container ship with 33 crew members aboard near Crooked Island in the Bahamas. The El Faro departed Jacksonville, Florida on September 9, headed to San Juan, Puerto Rico.
There is new information tonight about the search for a cargo ship carrying 33 people, 28 of them Americans. The search is focused about 75 miles from the ship's last known position, which is about 200 miles east of the Bahamas. The El Faro was caught in Hurricane Joaquin's ferocious winds 3 days ago. The ship took off from Jacksonville, Florida, and Mark Strassman is there.
This Coast Guard video shows a helicopter crew recovering a life ring in the Bermuda Triangle. It came from El Faro. A weekend-long search by Air and Sea has found a 225-square-mile debris field, and in it, more life rings, a container, life vests, wood, cargo, styrofoam, and oil sheen. But Tote Marine, the cargo ship's owner, said in a statement today there has been no sighting of the El Faro or any lifeboats. Coast Guard Chief Petty Officer Ryan Doss.
We're out there looking for anything that may give us some sort of indication of where the ship may be or where it may have happened, or those sailors that were aboard, hopefully aboard a life raft.
On Tuesday morning, the 790-foot cargo ship, heavily loaded with containers, set out for San Juan from Jacksonville. Joaquin was then a tropical storm. Tote Marine says 53-year-old Captain Michael Davidson felt he could get ahead of the weather. By Thursday at 7:20 a.m., the ship radioed a distress call. It was now near the eye of a Category 4 hurricane's 130-mile-per-hour winds and 30-foot swells. El Faro had lost power and propulsion and was listing 15 degrees. The crew was also pumping water. Since then, radio silence. Crew member Frank Ham is Rochelle Ham's husband.
Normally my husband tells me they have a different route to take around a storm. I don't know why they didn't just steer the ship in a different direction. This is totally unacceptable.
All weekend in Jacksonville, relatives of the missing crew have looked for news and comfort at the Seafarers International Union Hall. Ariana Davidson, the captain's daughter, tweeted this weekend, "Please pray for my dad to return safely."
We talked to another cargo ship captain who has made the same Jacksonville to San Juan trip for the last 20 years. He told us there are 3 possible routes. But Jeff, he also emphasized that it's the ship captain who typically chooses which way to go.
Mark Strassman in Jacksonville. Mark, thank you.
Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, says the chances are very good for the nation's nominee for the position of Commonwealth Secretary General, Sir Ronald Sanders. Brown said Sanders has the support of at least 9 nations in the Commonwealth Caribbean.
What we're seeking to do at the time was to engage them to get the support or their support for our candidate for the job of Commonwealth Secretary General, Sir Ron Sanders. And I'm pleased to report to the nation that we have gotten a number of pledges. We have made significant progress, and from all indications, it would appear that Sir Ron Sanders stands a very good chance of becoming the Secretary General of the Commonwealth Secretariat. So from that standpoint, the visit has been very successful.
Internationally, Portugal's centre-right coalition wins the general election but loses its majority in parliament. More in this report.
Supporters of Portugal's centre-right government cheer after election results reveal their victory. But the prospect of political uncertainty now looms, after results also showed a failure to win a parliamentary majority. This year's general election served as a test of the government and Prime Minister Pedro Passos Coelho's tough austerity stance. Victory for the government was unthinkable just a few months ago, with polls giving a solid lead to the socialists. It comes amid signs that voters elsewhere in Europe appear resigned to austerity.
Após 4 anos de muitas dificuldades,
after 4 years of great difficulties, work on recovery has begun, and we cannot go backwards, and this team can take us forward.
tem condições de levar avante.
A minority government could unnerve investors in the country. Not one has survived a full term since 1974 and the overthrow of the country's fascist regime. Meanwhile, Socialist Party supporters were disappointed. Leader Antonio Costa said he had failed to meet his goal of victory, but would stay on the same track. The general election was the first since Portugal exited an international bailout last year, and the economy returned to slow growth after a 3-year recession.
Some of those injured in the bombing of a Médecins Sans Frontières or Doctors Without Borders hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan, have spoken to the BBC about their ordeal. At least 22 people, including staff, were killed in attacks, which the charity blames on US-led NATO forces. One man said he saw both doctors and patients burning to death. Shaima Khalil reports from Kabul.
In the city of Mazar-e-Sharif, casualties are away from danger, but still in shock.
Doctors were about to take me to an operating theatre when the bomb hit. There were flames all around me. I saw patients and doctors burned to death.
It's the story of many patients who say they'd gone there for treatment, only to find themselves under fire.
There was no place to hide. My father dragged me to the basement. At daybreak, troops came and took me out.
Well, other casualties have made the journey all the way from Kunduz to this emergency hospital here in Kabul. Officials here tell us that they've received 25 people initially, some of them seriously injured, but that many more are still coming in. And as the relentless fighting continues, the exodus from the city begins. Masouda was strapped in the basement of her home for days with her 7 children as the fighting raged. She told me of the horror she saw.
We were out of food for days. When our house was bombed, we had to flee the city. As we made our way out, I saw dead bodies everywhere.
The battle for Kunduz continues, and the human cost is rising. Shaima Khalil, BBC News, Kabul.
President Barack Obama has expressed his deep condolences to the families of victims, and the U.S. military has launched an investigation.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Smile Patrol. I'm Janik, your host.
Now, taking a look at the weather, temperatures today will peak at 29 degrees Celsius or 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are southeast at 7 to 14 miles per hour. Seas will be moderate with waves of height less than 1.2 meters or 4 feet. In the weather summary, a high-pressure system in the vicinity at the lower levels of the atmosphere will cause minimum shower activity. Hot weather will continue with tomorrow's high temperature reaching around 91 degrees Fahrenheit and the heat index reaching as high as 102 degrees Fahrenheit. Possible rainfall total over the next 24 hours is less than 1 millimeter. However, isolated higher amounts are possible. The weather tonight will be mostly clear with a 10% or slight chance of showers. Sunset for today will be 5:57 p.m., sunrise tomorrow at 6:02 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jason Davis.